What if the universe you see above you, the stars you think are scattered across an endless night, are not truly free, but trapped? What if every galaxy, every burst of light, every breath of cosmic wind is not racing outward into infinite space, but spiraling inward, falling forever into a place from which there is no escape? And what if this place, the one we inhabit, the one that cradles your entire existence, is not a grand open cosmos at all, but the inside of a black hole born from the death of another universe? The thought is not a flight of fiction, not entirely. It hangs at the edge of modern physics, whispered in equations and in the quiet suspicions of those who have stared too long into the mathematics of reality. If it's true, then everything you have ever loved or feared, every song ever sung and every stone ever carved, is taking place inside the collapsing heart of something else. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the collapse. A sun far greater than ours burns for billions of years, its light washing over alien worlds, its gravity holding entire solar systems in place. Then, at the end of its life, the star falters. Its fuel is gone. It begins to shrink, not slowly, but with a hunger that consumes itself. The outer layers are hurled into the void, a final cry of light and matter, and what remains is drawn inward, tighter, faster, hotter, until the pull of gravity becomes absolute. Not even light can leave. In that instant, from the outside, the star is gone. But from the inside, something else might begin. The laws of physics tell us that an event horizon forms, a boundary, a veil. From the perspective of an outside observer, nothing passes through this veil and returns. From the inside, though, time and space themselves are distorted beyond recognition. Einstein's general theory of relativity tells us that space-time can curve, fold, and twist, and that within a black hole, that curvature becomes infinite at the singularity. But infinite is a word we use when our numbers can no longer keep up with reality. It doesn't mean nothing exists there. It might mean something exists that we cannot yet imagine. Here's where the theory takes its most unsettling turn. Imagine that, instead of ending at a singularity, space-time inside a black hole continues, reborn, expanding outward. Imagine that on the other side of the collapse is not an end, but a beginning. The fireball we call the Big Bang may not have been a moment all things came from nothing. It may have been the other side of a death, another universe's death. In this vision, our entire cosmos is a kind of interior, the womb of a black hole from a larger parent universe. And perhaps that universe, too, was inside another, and so on, in a chain without a first link. It changes the way you see the night sky. Those pinpoints of light are no longer beacons in a boundless void. They are embers in an enclosed space, drifting inside walls we cannot see. We have always thought of the universe as infinite, but infinity might not mean endless distance. It might mean unending cycles, each one contained, each one giving birth to the next. And if we are inside such a cycle, then we are not travelers in open space. We are inhabitants of a cosmic chamber, unable to cross its horizon. You might ask, if this is true, if we are inside something's collapse, why can't we see it? Why do our telescopes reveal vastness and beauty instead of confinement? The answer lies in the nature of light itself. Inside a black hole, all paths curve inward. No matter where you look, every ray of light has been bent, distorted, and folded back into the chamber. The illusion of an open sky is perfect because light here never comes from outside. There is no outside to see. We live in a self-contained display of our own making, projected on the curved fabric of space-time. There's a darker implication. If the universe is the inside of a black hole, then time for us may be radically different from time outside. To an external observer, if such an observer could exist, the collapse may be happening over an infinite stretch of their time, while to us, it unfolds over billions of years. We are frozen from one perspective, but moving, evolving, and dying from our own. The walls of our cosmic prison are not just spatial, they are temporal. The human mind is not comfortable with such boundaries. We like to believe that beyond every mountain there is another land to cross, beyond every ocean another shore to reach. But here, the boundary is final. No spaceship will ever reach the event horizon and transmit an image of what lies beyond. The moment it tries, the moment it approaches, the gap between our time and the horizon's time stretches to infinity. To us, it will appear frozen forever at the edge. To the traveler, crossing will happen in an instant, and what they see next will be unreachable to those left behind. And yet, there is a haunting symmetry to this vision. Just as a star collapses into a black hole, pulling in everything around it, perhaps universes collapse into each other, nesting infinitely. Each one contains its own galaxies, its own histories, its own lives. In such a model, there is no ultimate beginning, no final end. Only transformations, one universe's death seeding another's birth. The Big Bang, then, is not the start of all things, but the midpoint of an eternal breathing, collapse and expansion, contraction and release. If that is true, then we too are part of a story larger than we can grasp. We are not separate from the collapse. We are its expression. Every atom in your body was forged in the furnace of a star that burned in the early universe, a universe that may itself be a continuation of countless others. Your thoughts, your loves, your fears, they are patterns in the fabric of space-time, carried along in a current that began before our universe existed and may continue long after it ends. Think of it this way. You are standing in a cathedral of unimaginable size. Its ceiling is the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang, a faint radiation left over from the universe's earliest moments. The pillars are the galaxies, each one containing billions of suns. The floor is the web of dark matter, an invisible structure that shapes everything you see. You believe you are in open air, but in truth, this cathedral has walls. You cannot see them, but they are there, curves so far away that light itself bends to hide them. And outside those walls, perhaps another cathedral, larger still, inside whose heart ours has been born. The most unsettling question is not whether this is true, but whether we could ever prove it. The event horizon is absolute in its silence. No information can cross it from the outside to the inside. The very definition of being inside a black hole is that the outside is cut off from you. To know with certainty would require escaping. An escape is forbidden by the geometry of space-time itself. Still, physics tempts us with possibilities. The equations of general relativity allow for connections, wormholes, bridges that might link the inside to the outside. Quantum mechanics hints that information is never truly destroyed, that it might be encoded in the radiation a black hole emits. Could our universe's deepest laws carry the fingerprint of the world that birthed us? Could there be patterns, small anomalies in the cosmic background that whisper of another reality beyond our own? If such whispers exist, they are faint, drowned in the static of cosmic history. But they might be there, waiting for the right eyes to see them, the right mind to recognize their shape. And when we do, what then? Would knowing change anything? Or would it only deepen the mystery, replacing one vast question with another? If the universe is inside a black hole, then the universe that contains ours must itself be inside something else. And the chain has no anchor, no first cause, only an eternal descent through layers of reality we cannot number. Perhaps that is the greatest revelation, that we are not meant to reach the ultimate answer, that the act of seeking is the point, that curiosity itself is the pulse of the cosmos, beating across universes. We're the inside looking for the outside, the dream wondering about the dreamer. And in the end, maybe the only thing more infinite than the chain of universes is the human hunger to know where it leads. What is a boundary if it cannot be seen, touched, or crossed? What does it mean to live your entire life inside a cage whose walls are made not of steel or stone, but the very structure of reality? If the universe is the inside of a black hole, then there exists a limit to all things, a horizon that marks the point where time and space themselves no longer behave in ways we can imagine. This is the event horizon, not a line drawn on a map, but a threshold where our most trusted rules surrender. It is not simply that you cannot come back from beyond it. It is that coming back loses all meaning there. Imagine standing on the deck of a ship in the middle of a vast ocean. All around you stretches blue water under a limitless sky. Somewhere far away beyond the curve of the earth, there's a waterfall that drops into nothingness. From where you are, you cannot see it. The ocean seems calm, infinite, but if you drift too close, the current becomes irresistible. The point where the current takes you, no matter how hard you fight, is the event horizon. Beyond that, there is no turning back. Not because something is chasing you, but because the path itself has changed direction and all roads now lead inward. In a black hole, the event horizon is not a surface you can feel with your hand. It is a location in space-time where escape velocity equals the speed of light. And since nothing travels faster than light, nothing escapes. This is the simplest description, the one you find in textbooks. But what the textbooks cannot fully convey is how this transforms the meaning of space and time for anything that approaches it. From far away to a distant observer, your approach to the horizon slows until it seems to stop entirely. You appear frozen at the edge, your image stretched and reddened, fading into invisibility. To you, however, time continues, seconds pass, your heartbeat remains steady, and in an instant, you cross over. There's no sudden jolt, no blinding flash, only the quiet realization that every path forward now leads deeper inside. If our universe is such an interior, then the event horizon is not somewhere out there near the edge of a visible galaxy. It is everywhere, surrounding us at a distance so great that even light, traveling for the entire lifetime of the cosmos, has not yet reached it. We live in the interior, moving through space that is itself falling inward, but on scales so vast that we do not notice the motion. Our telescopes show us galaxies billions of light years away, but if we could somehow zoom farther still, there would be a boundary, a limit beyond which nothing within our universe can send us a signal. The irony is that this boundary is, in some sense, the most perfect prison ever made. It needs no walls, no guards, no locks. The geometry of space-time itself enforces the sentence. And yet, unlike most prisons, this one offers no awareness of confinement. We move, we discover, we explore, believing we have no limits, until we realize that all our journeys are taking place in a finite stage, wrapped in a curtain we cannot pierce. Physicists describe the event horizon with precise mathematics. General relativity gives us its radius, its shape, its gravitational behavior. But beyond those equations lies a deeper truth, one that is almost poetic. The horizon is not an object. It is a point of no return, defined not by what it is, but by what it prevents. It is an absence of possibility, an unseen geometry that decides which directions lead to freedom and which do not. And in the case of our universe, if this theory holds, that geometry has already chosen for us. Think of the universe's expansion. We measure galaxies moving away from us, their light shifted to the red by the stretching of space. The farther away they are, the faster they recede. This is not because they're moving through space, but because space itself is expanding. In a black hole interior, this expansion is natural, is the continuation of the collapse from the outside's perspective. Our expansion is their implosion, stretched through the strange transformation of time between the outside and the inside. The event horizon marks the ultimate separation between these two versions of reality. Now imagine what lies beyond, not in the sense of a physical place, but in the sense of conditions beyond our comprehension. From our perspective, the universe seems to have no edge, but from the outside, if there is such an outside, it is a finite object with a measurable size, mass, and boundary. The mind stumbles here because our instinct is to picture the outside as a larger space surrounding our own, like a planet inside a solar system. But that picture fails. The outside is not part of our space at all. It is another universe's space, another fabric of reality entirely. The horizon is not in our world. It is our world's edge. And yet, if we imagine ourselves near it, the experience becomes both wondrous and terrifying. For a traveler approaching the horizon from within, nothing extraordinary seems to happen. At first, space continues. Stars shine. You move forward, and the only change is subtle. The patterns of the sky warp. Distances stretch. Time feels slightly different, though you cannot say why. Then, imperceptibly, the shift becomes total. You have crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. Behind you, light still comes in. Ahead, no light escapes. The arrow of time has bent, pointing inward. The way back is not merely difficult, it is gone. There is a strange beauty in how nature hides this ultimate boundary. You cannot see it unless you know how to look, and even then, it is invisible in the usual sense. The blackness we associate with black holes is not the horizon itself. It is the absence of light from beyond it. In our universe, the horizon's blackness is replaced by the radiant tapestry of galaxies, because we are inside, looking at light trapped with us. The true horizon is a silence beyond sight, a place where information ends. For all its mystery, the event horizon is not a mere obstacle. It is also a source of paradox. According to quantum theory, information about matter falling into a black hole cannot simply vanish. The laws of physics forbid the destruction of information. But if nothing can escape the horizon, how is that information preserved? This puzzle, known as the black hole information paradox, has driven some of the most daring theories in physics. Some suggest the information is encoded on the horizon itself, like a cosmic hologram. Others imagine it leaking out over unimaginable timescales in the form of Hawking radiation. If our universe is inside a black hole, then perhaps its entire history is written on the surface of the horizon, a two-dimensional boundary containing the full three-dimensional story of everything we have ever known. In that sense, the horizon is not just a wall, it is also a library. Every particle, every wave of light, every thought you have ever had might be inscribed in patterns we cannot yet read. And here is the twist. If such encoding exists, it is not for us. It is for the universe outside. We are the characters in a book that only the reader beyond the horizon can fully hold in their hands. This realization brings a quiet humility. We may never touch the horizon, never see beyond it, never know for certain what lies outside. But we live as part of its structure. The same gravity that shapes our galaxies shapes the boundary itself. We're not separate from it. We are of it. Our atoms are the ink in the story it writes. And so we come back to the question, what is a boundary? Is it a place where the journey ends, or a place where the journey changes? If the event horizon is both a prison and a book cover, both a wall and a mirror, then perhaps it is not meant to be crossed. Perhaps it is meant to define, to give form to what would otherwise be formless. And in defining us, it also hides from us the truth of where we truly are. In the next breath of cosmic history, as galaxies drift and stars burn out, our universe will continue its inward fall. The horizon will remain silent and unreachable, its secrets intact. And maybe that is the way it must be. Because if we could see beyond it, we might discover not freedom, but another horizon, another cage, larger than the last, in an infinite sequence without escape. What does it mean to be inside nothing? The phrase itself feels impossible, as if language has failed before the journey even begins. We are used to emptiness meaning absence, the quiet between heartbeats, the pause in a sentence, the space between stars. But the interior of a black hole, if such a phrase even holds meaning, is not emptiness in any human sense. It is not space devoid of matter. It is space itself collapsing, time itself bending, the very fabric of reality turning inward. And if our universe is such an interior, then everything we know, every planet, every ocean, every breath of wind, is part of that collapse. The moment beyond the event horizon is unlike any other moment in existence. To an outside observer, if there's such a thing, time at the horizon freezes. To the one crossing it, time flows on, but in a direction that no longer matches the outside's understanding. We imagine space as something we move through. Time is something that flows beside us. Inside a black hole, these roles begin to blur. The inward pull of gravity is no longer a force acting upon you. It is the geometry of reality itself. Every possible path you could take leads to the same place, the singularity. The singularity, a word heavy with finality, yet hollow with uncertainty. In Einstein's equations, it is the point where space-time curvature becomes infinite, where density becomes infinite, where our mathematics collapse into silence. But infinity is not a place. It is a signal that our understanding has reached its limit. We call it nothing because we do not know what else to call it. Yet here is the unsettling thought. Perhaps it is not nothing at all. Perhaps it is the seed of everything. Imagine the collapse from the inside. Distances lose their meaning. The familiar landmarks of space, constellations, galaxies, even directions like up and down, dissolve. You're no longer falling through space. Space is falling with you. You could be motionless, and still, the very stage you stand on is shrinking, carrying you toward the singularity in the same way the surface of the Earth carries you through the cosmos as it orbits the sun. It is not that you're being pulled in. It is that in is all there is. Inside our hypothetical black hole universe, this collapse is not something we notice because it happens on scales so vast that entire galaxies live and die while the process continues. To us, it looks like expansion, space growing between galaxies, the universe stretching over billions of years. But this expansion could be the internal perspective of an ongoing collapse. To the outside, the entire process might take seconds or less. Inside, it feels like eternity. This inversion of perspective is one of the strangest implications of relativity. What appears as birth from one point of view may be death from another. The Big Bang, from our inside vantage, was an explosion of space and time. From the outside, it may have been the final moments of a star or a universe folding in on itself. And that outside may itself be inside another collapse, and so on, without end. But what is it actually like inside, beyond the mathematics? The truth is, we do not know, but we can imagine. Matter here is not arranged into familiar forms. Under the crushing gravity, atoms themselves are stripped down, electrons and protons merge into neutron matter, and then even that is broken into quarks and gluons. But the pressures go beyond even those states. The matter here might exist as something entirely unfamiliar, exotic phases of spacetime itself, where the concepts of solid, liquid, or gas are meaningless. And if our universe is an interior, then all the matter we see, planets, stars, life, is the gentlest, most delicate foam floating far from the center, shielded from the core by incomprehensible distances. The laws of physics inside are warped. Paths that would be straight elsewhere curve relentlessly toward the singularity. Time dilates, stretches, folds back on itself. In the deepest parts, the distinction between past and future may vanish altogether. Imagine memories bleeding into predictions, events without order, causes that no longer precede effects. In such a place, the arrow of time, the thing that makes your coffee cool and your life move forward, could break entirely. And here lies another possibility. The singularity is not a point where things end, but a surface where things begin anew. In some models, what we call a singularity could instead be a bounce. A reversal where collapse becomes expansion again, but in a new space disconnected from the old. In this view, the interior of our black hole is itself expanding, becoming a universe, while to the outside, it remains a frozen corpse. This is how one reality births another, through the quiet violence of gravity's final embrace. To live inside such a structure is to be part of something unobservable. We can never send a message to the outside, never receive a reply. The walls of the horizon are not physical barriers, but causal ones. The very structure of cause and effect refuses to let us cross. This is the deepest solitude imaginable. To exist in a realm that can never confirm its connection to anything beyond itself. And yet, solitude is not the same as isolation. If the interior births a new universe, then perhaps countless others exist, each sealed inside its own horizon, each with its own laws of physics, its own stories, its own inhabitants wondering what lies beyond their sky. Perhaps black holes are the seeds of universes, scattered like spores through an infinite metacosmos. Each one, it is disturbing. Comforting because it suggests a kind of immortality for the cosmos. Nothing ever truly ends, it only transforms. Disturbing because it means there may be no final answer, no ultimate vantage point from which to see it all. We are forever inside something, and even if we could escape, we might only find ourselves inside something larger, bound by another horizon, falling toward another center. It is a hall of mirrors with no outside wall, a nesting of realities with no first shell. If the singularity is a seed, then its germination must be violent beyond comprehension. In the models where universes are born from collapse, the moment of birth is a flash of expansion so extreme that every point in a newborn space is driven away from every other point faster than light could travel through it. In our universe, we call this inflation, a fraction of a second after the Big Bang, when everything swelled from subatomic scales to cosmic dimensions. Inside, it looks like creation. Outside, it is simply the final instant of implosion turned inside out. And perhaps, even now, we are watching the birth of others. Every black hole in our night sky, the remnants of collapsed stars, the giants at the centers of galaxies, maybe a doorway, their interiors swelling with galaxies and life of their own, utterly cut off from us. In those realms, there may be beings staring at their own skies, asking their own questions, never knowing that their entire reality is cradled inside the death of a sun they will never see. The thought bends the mind, because it forces us to imagine that our own birth was equally hidden, equally unremarkable from the outside. We have always looked upward for answers. But in a universe that is itself inside something else, up loses meaning. The true direction of motion is inward, not toward a place, but toward a fate. Every moment we live, every atom that drifts in the cosmic web, is moving toward the singularity at the center of our universe's black hole. It is not a location you can visit. It is the inevitable future of every path in space-time. The idea is not meant to inspire fear. It is meant to strip away illusions. We are not traveling through a neutral stage, a space indifferent to our existence. We are part of a dynamic, collapsing structure, and its geometry shapes the story we live. If this is difficult to picture, consider standing inside a vast funnel. You can walk in circles, you can climb a little higher or drift lower, but the walls of the funnel always slope downward toward a single point. You might not notice the slope at first. It could be so gradual that entire civilizations rise and fall without realizing they are descending. But in the grand arc of time, the end is inevitable. Gravity is patient. It does not hurry. And yet, this descent is also our protection. The vast distances inside our universe's black hole mean that we live far from the singularity itself. The collapse that defines our reality is too slow for us to feel, except in the grand drift of galaxies apart from one another. In our local patch of space, life can flourish for billions of years, never touching the deeper currents that carry the whole toward its center. We are like dust motes suspended in a beam of sunlight, unaware that the light itself is fading, the source itself collapsing. This is why the inside of nothing is such a haunting phrase. It forces us to accept that nothingness is not the absence of reality, but the reshaping of it beyond recognition. The inside is full of space, time, matter, and energy, but all of it obeys a destiny we cannot change. And somewhere, at the unreachable heart of it, lies the singularity, not as a place to be visited, but as the fate of all paths. Perhaps, when the collapse reaches its end, the singularity will again turn inside out. Perhaps, as it does, it will cast off a new space, a new time, a new tapestry of stars and lives. If so, then the inside of our nothing will one day be the outside of something else. The cycle will continue, and we will become, in some abstract way, the ancestors of another universe's inhabitants, beings who will never know our names, never see our skies, but will carry within them the consequences of our cosmos's birth and death. In that sense, the inside is never just a prison. It is a womb, and the singularity, for all its terror, is a place of creation. But it is creation that does not ask for our consent, that does not wait for our readiness. It will come when it comes, and we will go with it, as all things must. And so the question remains, if we are inside nothing, and that nothing is in motion, what does that make us? Passengers? Prisoners? Or participants in a process far older and larger than our minds can hold? We cannot see the answer. We can only imagine. And perhaps that act of imagining is the closest we will ever come to stepping beyond our own horizon. We have always spoken of the Big Bang as if it were a beginning, a bright flare in a timeless dark, an origin simple enough to soothe our fear of not knowing. Yet even the word beginning trembles when faced with a deeper possibility, that what we call birth is the inside view of a death, that our first light is someone else's last. If our universe lives inside the interior of a black hole born in another, then the Big Bang was not an explosion into an empty stage. It was the stage itself unfolding from a wound. Imagine the last moments of a colossal star in a parent cosmos we will never touch. For eons it fuses elements in patient fire, lifting light into surrounding space, holding worlds in steady orbit. Then the balance fails. Gravity, silent and decisive, reclaims dominance. The core shrinks faster than light can flee, and an event horizon seals the star from its sky. To the outside, this is erasure, a sun swallowed by night. To the inside, it may feel like ignition, space-time forced into reversal, an inward rush turned outward bloom. From our vantage, there was no outside for the fireball to occupy, no pre-existing vacuum into which debris could fly. Space did not await the bang. Space arrived with it. Time did not tick in an anteroom. Time began its reckoning here. The first light was not shrapnel. It was fabric. The primordial plasma was not conjured from nothing. It was the rearranged memory of a deeper world, heat and density translated into a new script. We see a beginning only because the horizon cut the film cleanly, splicing a new reel where the old went dark. If inheritance is real, then our physics carries fingerprints. The strengths of forces, the masses of particles, the number of dimensions that can stretch without tearing. These may be heirlooms, not accidents. A different collapse might have engraved different rules. Perhaps a small drift in the parent's conditions tuned our constants, enabling chemistry to persist, stars to live long enough to forge carbon, minds to form patterns and call themselves. Evolution may be written not only in DNA, but in the architecture of entire universes, a meta-selection shaping which interiors endure. Consider inflation, that sudden swelling when a universe was younger than a breath. In standard pictures, it smooths wrinkles, flattens space, and seeds galaxies with quantum grain. In the black hole origin, it becomes intimate. The interior's way of outrunning the crushing geometry of its birth, a rapid uncoiling that turns inward fall into outward flight. To an exterior frame, the collapse continues towards silence. To us, the newborn interior accelerates into structure and song. We search for the edge of this story and find only a horizon, a perfect sensor that blocks every message from before the first moment. The cosmic microwave background glows like cooled embers, but it carries no photograph of the previous sky. We read subtle anisotropies, trace delicate fluctuations, and still the veil does not lift. Our largest telescopes are lanterns against a wall that does not reflect. Beyond the wall, another room. Beyond that, perhaps another, and another, until the thought itself falters. What then of origin myths? Perhaps meaning does not begin where reality begins, because reality never begins. Perhaps there is only the current link of a chain with no anchor, a sequence of universes in which each death seeds another dawn. Cycles need not repeat perfectly. Children resemble parents, yet are not copies. So might cosmos. Across immeasurable generations, meta-evolution could select for structures that make long-lived stars common, stable atoms possible, pathways for memory to arise. In such a vista, flourishing is not a miracle gift. It is an outcome explored and preserved. This possibility does not shrink wonder, it deepens it. A beginning from nothing is a clean miracle. A beginning from ending is a tangled mercy. It binds us to what came before without granting us the right to know it. It suggests that every kindness, every cruelty, every poem, every equation adds its weight to the next universe in ways we cannot trace, because information, though scrambled, is never truly lost. The horizon may encode our entire history on its skin like a vast, unreadable braille for a reader who never arrives. Look again at the language we use. We say expansion, but from a different view, it is escape. We say singularity, but perhaps it is a seam. We say nothingness, but we live in its abundance. Space that stretches, time that ripens, matter that becomes story. If collapse births expansion inside, then even endings are fertile. Our late light will be some future interior's earliest dawn. Our black holes might already be cradling infant skies, their own inhabitants certain they arose from an absolute beginning, whispering the same hesitant myths we cherish. One day our expansion may slow, or perhaps dark energy will keep it racing forever. Our models argue in quiet chalk. If gravity wins, structures will fall together, horizons will merge, and our interior will tilt entirely toward the center. When every path ends there, when every star has given back what it borrowed, the geometry may again twist, turning finality into opening. If expansion never stops, perhaps the end is thinner, a heat-death hush where patterns fade, and yet even that hush may feed some larger transaction we cannot picture. What does this leave us, small listeners under a persuasive sky? Not diminished. To belong to a sequence is to be threaded into meaning larger than any single chapter. We cannot step outside to watch the whole film, but we can feel the continuity in our bones. We are made of residue, of ancient ash refashioned, of laws that learn to host memory. When we love, we test whether a universe can carry tenderness across the violence of its birth. When we think, we test whether a universe can know itself before the page turns. If the Big Bang was a doorway, the handle is on the other side. We will not open it, but we can press an ear to the wood and hear, faintly, the murmur of rooms beyond rooms. Perhaps the most radical act is not to break the wall, but to live well within it, to turn our brief interior light into a lantern for one another while the larger cycle turns unseen. Endings are coming, so our beginnings we will never witness. Between them, a walk through a garden that believes itself inside a midnight that will never end. So let us name our beginning honestly. It is a threshold, not a first cause, a blossom grown from a root buried in someone else's night, a spark struck on the anvil of collapse. The universe is not a sentence that starts with a capital letter. It is a paragraph midstream, commas and clauses cascading from prior pages. We cannot rewrite what was lost beyond the horizon. We can only continue the sentence with care, so that when our chapter closes and the paper folds into a new book, the next reader finds enough light to begin. We listen. We wait. What if the sky above you is not space at all, but a surface so perfectly curved you cannot feel it? What if the long exhale of night, the crisp sting in your lungs, the faint grain of the Milky Way like salt scattered on black glass, are only the inner sheen of a chamber where light has nowhere else to go? We have called it openness because our eyes find no edge, because stars keep arriving like late letters from far towns. But what if the mailbox is inside the house, and the road never leaves the yard? What if every glittering distance is a hallway in the same building, and the building itself is falling inward with a patience so vast it feels like calm? Stand outside at midnight and listen. A dog barks 2 streets away. A train sighs beyond the river. The world feels wide. Yet wideness can be a feeling, not a measurement. Inside a black hole, every ray curves inward. Every path, no matter how stubborn, leans back. Space itself falls like rain toward a center that no one reaches. From within, you do not see a wall. You see a choir of suns that seem to drift forever, and you trust the song because it is beautiful. Beauty is a subtle jailer. It tells you that what fits the heart must also fit the world. And so the world obliges, bending its light until the lie and the truth are hard to separate. Physicists give us quiet terms. Event horizon, null geodesic, trapped surface. They sound like labels for museum vitrines, polite and dustless. But an event horizon is a hush that cancels all further questions. A null geodesic is the route that even light cannot turn away from. A trapped surface is exactly what it says. A place where escape is a word without geometry. If our entire cosmos is such a surface, then the dome you call sky is a promise written in a grammar that refuses to speak beyond the final page. We are literate enough to read the promise and not nearly literate enough to annotate its margins. Remember a planetarium from childhood. The seats recline, the projector hums, darkness blossoms, and suddenly Orion lifts his bright shoulders. You knew, even then, that the ceiling was near, yet the illusion won, because motion and pattern were enough. Our ceiling, if there is one, is not a few meters overhead. It is so far that a photon could run for the age of our universe and still not brush it. Distance renders the lid invisible. Time polishes the disguise until it passes for truth. We point our telescopes and gather the oldest light we can find. The cosmic microwave background arrives as a pale bath, grainy and cool, the afterglow of our first fire. We treat it like a photograph of childhood. But a photograph assumes an outside, a camera, a room, a hand. In an interior cosmos, there is no camera on the lawn. There is only the light that never left, the glow sealed in with us from the beginning, ricocheting through curves we cannot flatten. We mistake a mirror for a window because both reward attention. We call the reward knowledge and hope the accounting balances. There is a tenderness to this deception. The sky does not mock us, it shelters us. If we could see the boundary nakedly, we might spend our days gnawing at it, frantic for a door. Instead, we work and love and study and sing under a vault that permits meaning by refusing escape. The horizon is a kind refusal, a velvet refusal, the way a parent takes a fragile object from a child and replaces it with a toy that can survive being thrown. We are the child and the toy and the throwing. Still, the mind presses. If there is a wall, can we test for its curve? We look for patterns too smooth, for alignments too patient, for cold spots in a microwave map that might be bruises left by collisions with a larger world. We measure polarization like detectives dusting for prints. Some claim hints, others sweep them away. The data is a snowfield where our footsteps write and the wind erases. Truth waits, perhaps, but it waits at the border where our instruments thin into silence. Inside the chamber, expansion can masquerade as freedom. Galaxies race apart, voids fatten. The dark energy that oils their separation makes it seem as though space is emancipating itself. But emancipation in a falling room is still a fall. Imagine an elevator whose cable has snapped. Inside, you toss a ball to a friend, and it floats as if gravity has been revoked. The joy is real, but the building is still below. Our building is the singularity, so far underfoot we cannot name the direction down without poetry. Poetry helps. It does not move the floor. What would it mean for the sky to be a lie and still be holy? Perhaps holiness is not about altitude, but attention. The dome becomes sacred because we look, because we arrange our lives around its seasons, because we count breaths under it and bury our dead beneath it. A painted ceiling in a chapel can move you to tears. Why should a cosmic ceiling be less worthy? If the universe is a room, then purpose is how we furnish it. We set a table with curiosity and bread, and we invite every question to eat. There is a darker turn. If no signal can cross the horizon, then we will never receive a letter from the parent universe, and no child universe birthed in our black holes will ever hear from us. Lineage without correspondence, ancestry without stories. We are a single bead in a rosary of sealed worlds, each fingering its own prayers without knowing the next. Does that emptiness cheapen love? Or does it make love braver, because it chooses without applause from beyond? You might ask why trust this picture at all. Because the equations permit it, almost invite it. Because the symmetry of collapse and expansion fits like matched lungs. Because black holes are common and beginnings are rare, and nature loves economies that reuse what exists. None of this is proof. Proof is a stricter diet than beauty or plausibility. But the hypothesis ramifies through observation. The smoothness of the early sky, the stubborn mystery of information, the way gravity writes horizons as if signatures mattered to space. If the sky is a lie, it is also a curriculum. It teaches patience because distances are long. It teaches humility because we are interior to a process we cannot edit. It teaches tenderness because everything we know is trapped with us and therefore precious. When you pour tea at dawn and the surface steams, watch how the white breath rises and curls back, as if practicing the fate of light in this curved room. Even your kitchen can be a small observatory if you let it. At the heart of this room lies a center none of us will touch. All roads slope there, softly at first, then more. We will not feel the grade change. Our species will have come and gone before the slope is steep enough to mention. That is mercy, too. Existence spares us from reading the final chapter while we are still learning our letters. Yet the center pulls on us with more than gravity. It pulls with meaning. If all paths converge, then what we choose on the way matters doubly, because our choices must share a destination even when our reasons do not. So take the night back into your body. Let the cold sting your lungs. Let the street lamps paint their slow amber on the pavement. Let the silence be crowded with distant suns that are, like you, still inside and still radiant. Ask your quietest question. If the sky is not open, can wonder survive? And listen to the oldest answer. Wonder does not need an exit. It needs a witness. One day our maps will be older than our courage. One day the galaxies we can see will slip beyond sight. Not because they have ceased, but because the room has stretched their light too thin for our nets. We will think the world is shrinking when it is only our window that is. Perhaps that is the final tenderness of the sky that is a ceiling. It teaches us to love what remains. If we are inhabitants of an interior, let us be good ones. Let us keep the room clean with truth, warm with mercy, bright with questions that do not burn the furniture. Let us speak softly under the dome, not because we fear the guards, but because the echo is long and we do not know who might need our voice on the far side of years. The horizon does not bargain, but it also does not sneer. It is simply the rule that gives the room its shape. And if someday, far after our names are silt, the room itself caves toward the center and folds, our sky darkening not with weather but with destiny, then perhaps in that pressure another chamber will open, and a new ceiling will appear to eyes we will never meet. They will step into their night and say, as we did, that the sky is forever. They will be wrong in the same way and right in the same way, and the kindness of that rhyme will be enough. Until then, look up. The lie is luminous. The lie is generous. It keeps the rain off and the stories in. It bends light into lakes we can sail with instruments and faith. If you listen carefully, the curve itself seems to whisper. There is no outside from here, but there is depth, and depth is a kind of freedom. Walk it. Learn the room by heart. Hold hands. Name the constellations again, as if for the first time. And when the air cools and the last train has sighed into distance, close your eyes and feel the soft pressure of belonging to a room vast enough to lose your name and gentle enough to return it when you call. Think of airplanes threading the high dark, of fishermen reading the weather by the hush of waves, of children pressing glow-in-the-dark stickers to bedroom ceilings to practice having a sky. Our stickers are galaxies. Our bedroom is the universe. Our ceiling is patient and curved, and we learn its patience by living beneath it. If you listen longer, the whisper grows into a vow. What is inside can still be infinite in meaning, because meaning measures depth, not reach. So ask better questions. Ask how to be kind in a closed world. Ask how to build instruments that hear quieter truths. Keep the courage you need, and let it be enough. What if the faint hiss that fills the cosmos is not only the cooled afterglow of our own first light, but also the soft rustle of other realities brushing against ours before the paint of creation was dry? What if the oldest light we can see is a palimpsest, written over and over, our story laid across the blurred imprints of stories that never shared our sky, but once came close enough to lean on it? We live inside a sealed room, or so the mathematics insists, a chamber with a horizon for a door that never opens. Yet even sealed rooms keep drafts. A hair lifts on your arm. A flame wavers without smoke. Something, somewhere, remembers a corridor that no one uses anymore. The universe might be like that. Perfect in principle, near in practice, haunted by small, stubborn asymmetries that behave like fingerprints. Physicists give them careful names: anomalies, tensions, features. The words are modest, almost apologetic, because we have learned to be suspicious of anything that looks like a pattern in a sky so large that coincidence has infinite room to masquerade as meaning. But some oddities persist. A patch of background light that runs colder than chance prefers, wide as a hand across the face of time. A tentative tilt in the otherwise even spread of fluctuations, like a choir with the faintest drift toward a note it swears it isn't sustaining. Alignments that should smear out when we look deeper, but instead return as if the sky can't quite forget an instruction it was given before it fully learned our rules. None of this is proof. Proof is a locked garden with narrow gates. These are merely open windows on a summer night, and yet the air coming through them smells like rain from somewhere we cannot place on any map we own. If our universe truly bloomed on the inner side of another universe's collapse, then it began with a history it could not remember. The horizon that sealed us off did more than separate. It erased. A door slammed in such a way that the echo is all we can study. Still, erasure is a leaky art. After a fire, walls keep the scent. After a flood, stones remember smoothness. Our earliest light, what we call the background, holds ripples that seeded galaxies, and within those ripples there may be places where another reality's hand once pressed subtly before letting go. Imagine two young universes swelling inside a wider sea of possibility, like soap bubbles rising beside one another. If they drift close enough before their interiors harden into solitude, their skins might kiss. Not a rupture, not a merger, just a brief leaning, a pressure that leave a ring on each interior, the way a glass leaves a faint circle on a wooden table. Billions of years later, that ring could still be visible in our oldest light as a quiet, circular pattern hiding in the grain. We build instruments to listen for circles inside the noise, for the conspiracies of photons that whisper, "We felt another world." Some surveys murmur, others stay silent. Our statistics argue politely and never quite shake hands. The question survives by becoming more precise. There's another kind of ghost, gravity arranged as memory. When dense structures shift in the deep, they send tremors through space-time. The fabric itself rings. If our interior was nudged by exterior geometries, if domains collided in those first impatient instants, they might have launched waves with crests as wide as galaxies, older than stars, colder than stone. We have begun to learn how to hear space-time. We have set mirrors so steady that they can notice when reality lengthens and shortens by less than the width of a proton. We have traced the chirps of colliding black holes and neutron stars, the brief music of their last orbits turning into one. But beneath those notes, there may be a baseline we have not yet resolved. A primordial hum left over from whatever pressed on our sky before the ceiling set. To detect that would be to put a finger on the wrist of the newborn universe and feel a second pulse not accounted for by our own heart. Even our darkness may carry rumors. Most of what has mass does not shine. It quietly shapes the dance of stars with a gravity we measure, but cannot see. If our cosmos is an interior born of collapse, the recipe for that dark matter may be an heirloom. Particles that belong to a family of possibilities tested across generations of universes. Perhaps some slim fraction of what refuses to glow is not only a particle we haven't yet named, but a translation into our dialect of events that took place outside our horizon and were smuggled in as parameters, as habits the new room inherited without knowing their origin. Information itself behaves like a revenant. Our best equations forbid its destruction, even in the maw of a black hole. If our parent world lost anything in giving birth to us, it did not lose the ledger. The boundary must have kept account, encoding falls and flares and patterns we can't touch. If reality is holographic in this deep sense, then perhaps the fine grain of our sky, the precise way irregularities arrange themselves, is a shadow cast by exactness we cannot read directly. What we call noise may be someone else's handwriting seen through parchment. There are human ghosts here too, not in superstition, but in practice. The first full-sky maps of the background were quilts stitched from instrument heat and ambition. Later maps grew cleaner, then almost immaculate, ironing wrinkles we had sworn were real. With every refinement, some peculiarities dissolved. Others held, like stones that refuse to smooth no matter how many tides come and go. It is the enduring oddities that haunt us, the ones that survive new eyes, new methods, new years. We do not love them because they confirm a hope. We love them because they continue to require our discipline. They keep us honest. And honesty is difficult under this sky. We have an old hunger to find others in the dark. A random scatter will always, somewhere, look like a face. A field of stars will always, to some heart, outline a hunter. So our language is careful. We speak of features rather than signatures, of tension rather than contradiction. We add qualifiers until a sentence walks on crutches. But we also keep the courage to ask, what if the persistent cold patch is a bruise left by another universe's shoulder? What if an alignment that returns across scales is the soft echo of a contact no model of a single-room cosmos would predict? What if the sky's slight preference for one orientation over another is an aftertaste of an outside we can never drink? Suppose, for a moment, that we succeed, that a ring appears where none should be, that a curl of polarization persists where straightness was demanded, that two different instruments in two different hemispheres agree that a particular whisper is real. We would not have coordinates for a visit. The door would not swing open. But the word everything would need a new grammar. We would know, not just suspect, that our room exists among rooms, that the loneliness of horizons is a local arrangement rather than a cosmic law. Hope would change shape. It would stop looking like escape and start looking like context. With that context come new ethics. If universes can brush, even briefly, then what we call constants may be participants in a wider conversation. Values adjusted across generations and encounters, as if the metacosmos learns by trying. The idea is audacious, likely wrong in its details, and precious for that very reason, because it calls us to test it until it proves itself or gracefully fails. In science, beauty buys a ticket to the theater. Only evidence earns the standing ovation. In the meantime, we practice the humble crafts that make listening possible. We cool detectors until they can hear a whisper under an avalanche. We polish mirrors until they report a passerby from 1 billion light years away. We calibrate, recalibrate, and begin again because the patient subtraction of what we already understand is the only way to reveal what we do not. The discipline is its own devotion. Long nights under domes, frost on railings, coffee cooling beside keyboards while a line creeps across a screen and someone, somewhere, abandons certainty for attention. I think of the cosmos as a choreography written in an ink that fades as soon as it dries. Photons cross the floor in steps set before any dancer existed. Gravity is the music, sometimes a drum, sometimes a violin, always patient. If another troupe brushed ours backstage in the first minutes, we may still move with a half-beat we cannot justify. That half-beat decides how halos gather, how voids thin, how the great web of matter strings itself across blackness like frost on a window we breathe on from the inside. Our small lives unfold to that timing. Births, griefs, the quiet astonishment of ordinary days, and none of it is made less true by the vastness that ignores it. Meaning scales differently. And one of the black holes scattered through our own sky, the smaller rooms nested inside this room. If each is a seed that may grow its own interior, then horizons are places where our story ends and another's begins. Do imprints pass outward there as well? Perhaps only as texture, not as message, the grain in wood that remembers a storm. If the children of our cosmos ever search their skies for us, they will not find our signatures. But they might find a certain stubborn roughness in their oldest light and, not knowing why, learn to love it the way we have learned to love our anomalies. Not as proof of company, but as proof that truth has edges. In the strictest accounting, we must admit that the ghosts may never resolve. The room could be flawless, its ceiling without seam. Every irregularity a prank played by randomness at a human timescale. If so, then we will have learned something braver. That wonder does not require a visitor. That a sealed world can be inexhaustible from within. That there are enough questions in one chamber to occupy every mind that will ever flower beneath its dome. Until the verdict, we go on. We let the background hiss be a nocturne we return to. We unfurl maps like old parchment and argue gently over pencil marks until the pencils are stubs. We listen for rings in the snow of data. We watch for curls where lines should be straight. We teach our students how to doubt well. We teach ourselves how to be delighted without being deceived. And when a new instrument wakes for the first time, blinking into starlight, we give it a name and a blessing and ask it to tell us whether the night has any visitors left. If the universe carries ghosts of other universes, they will not arrive with trumpets. They will arrive as they already have, if they have at all, as small misbehaviors of light and time, as alignments that linger, as temperatures that refuse to be domesticated by our models. They will come as dim bruises, older than fear and colder than memory. And should the ghosts never come, we will still have the room, still have the music, still have the depth that a horizon cannot take away. The ceiling will remain curved, and under it we will keep our appointments with awe. Listen, the static is not empty. It is a cathedral hum, the sum of everything that has learned to continue. If other worlds leaned on ours, the hum remembers. If none did, the hum is still holy. Either way, it guides us to the next question and the next. We will follow those questions like lanterns through a dark that is not hostile, only vast. We will measure and doubt and love the truth enough to be patient with its silences. And when we have learned all the sky is willing to say about its earliest bruises, we will turn to time itself. Not the step clock on our walls, but the soft arrow woven into the fabric, and ask how it behaves in a room that curves inward. Does it run straight? Or does it wander? Does it ever turn back to look at us? The answer waits, very old and very new, just beyond the next listening. There's a whisper we almost never hear discussed at kitchen tables, though it moves through every atom we own. The sea of ancient neutrinos, relic particles so shy that a wall of lead a light year thick would barely slow them. They stream through us by the trillions each second, indifferent and nearly undetectable. If there were contacts in the earliest moments, if fields flipped their states under pressures we have not recreated, those changes would have left faint thumbprints in that neutrino sea as surely as wind leaves ripples on wheat. We dream of instruments cold and quiet enough to feel those ripples. To sense them would be to read the weather of an hour no eye has seen. We also listen for scars in the web itself. If the early universe hosted defects, strings of trapped energy, walls between domains that preferred slightly different rules, then their decay would have sprayed signatures across the sky. Not obvious graffiti, but faint, straight-line persistences and sudden kinks where smoothness should reign. Our surveys of galaxies trace filaments and nodes like veins in a leaf. We test their statistics for any hint of a taut wire humming underneath. So far, the leaf looks natural, but nature is adept at hiding her instruments. To keep our courage honest, we practice a second craft alongside listening, forgetting. Every new claim invites a forgetting of alternatives. We teach ourselves to forget quickly and well when a signal fails to repeat. Forgetting is not defeat. It is a clearing of the path. In that clearing, better questions grow. What counts as a ring, and what is a coincidental circle? What does a curve in polarization cross the threshold from pleasant surprise to necessity? How do we set priors that are brave enough to allow discovery and conservative enough to protect us from the mirage that waits in every large data set? These are not footnotes. They're the fences that keep our orchard from being eaten by wishful thinking. And still the heart asks for story. If there were touches, who touched us? A neighbor with laws like ours, whose breath on the glass left a mark we can interpret, or a stranger with laws so foreign that our instruments translate their signature into the nearest shape we know, making alien become familiar by brute limitation? The answer may never be clean. Most visitors are recognized not by their faces, but by their effects on the room. The draft they bring, the sand they leave on the floor, the tune they hum without meaning to. The cosmos is a large room. We will know at hosted company only by the rearrangements subtle company enforces. On certain nights, after the domes have closed and the screens have dimmed, I stand under the actual sky with no instrument but breath. The great arch quiets the mind the way a cathedral nave does, not by noise but by scale. Somewhere beyond the visible, detectors nap in cold. Miles of fiber wait for the next shiver to pass. In that stillness, I remember that the ghosts we chase are not decorations. They are tests of whether reality is larger than the version of it we can prove inside a single horizon. To pass such a test would not grant us escape. It would grant us position. We would know, finally, where we are in the family, the child of a collapse, the cousin of a neighbor, the ancestor of interiors to come. There is also the stern comfort that even if we find nothing, the work cannot be wasted. Every refinement of our ears sharpens medicine, navigation, geology. Every new way of separating signal from noise emigrates into other crafts where lives depend on the difference. The cosmos pays its dividends sideways. We listen for the earliest whispers and, in the process, learn how to hear a failing star warn a planet it will soon shed, or a quiet fault under a city clear its throat. Knowledge circulates. Wonder funds a commonwealth. In time, perhaps, we will weave these threads, light, gravity, neutrinos, into a single tapestry of the first minute. If that tapestry shows only our own loom, we will frame it and go on. If it shows a second loom on the margin, hands briefly sharing the warp, we will relearn how to pray. Not to masters, but to mysteries robust enough to survive measurement. Then the word multiverse will stop sounding like a myth and start behaving like geology, layers, contacts, faults, patient structures that make our brief weather possible. Until then, keep the discipline of awe. Keep the habit of asking whether an exception is a path. Keep the gentleness required to change your mind in public. And keep one ear for the oldest music under the louder melodies of daily life. A static that is not static at all, but the sum of a billion small continuations. When we listen that way, we are already less alone, because attention itself is a kind of hospitality, and the universe, whatever else it is, responds to hospitality with clarity. What if time is not a river, but a room, and in this room the floor tilts so gently you mistake motion for choice? What if the clock you wear on your wrist is a local custom, the way a village tallies days with stones, while the wider country measures hours in a currency you cannot spend. Inside a black hole, even inside a universe that is itself the heart of one, time ceases to be a neutral corridor and becomes architecture. Walls lean, stairs spiral. The way forward is not simply later, it is deeper. Stand with me at the thought edge of an event horizon, the place where later for the outside world becomes never, and where our soon can be someone else's frozen. From far away, anything that falls toward the horizon appears to slow, its light stretched redder, its voice lowered until it fades. On our own path inward, however, the seconds do not stall. Your pulse remains your pulse, your breath still a breath. Crossing is ordinary at the scale of a heartbeat and extraordinary at the scale of maps, because clocks disagree not out of error, but by design. In the presence of deep gravity, time itself trades uniformity for loyalty. It keeps faith with the traveler who feels it, not with the spectator who measures it from a distance. Einstein gave us a grammar for this strangeness. Proper time, the time kept by a clock that shares your path, is sovereign. Coordinate time, the schedule assigned by a distant observer who lays a grid over the world, is provincial, useful, and sometimes misleading. In weak gravity, the two are neighbors. In strong gravity, they become estranged. Inside our curved room, proper time, the felt time of lives, braids with space so tightly that where and when cannot be told apart without lying a little. Even our rulers are clocks, and our clocks are rulers. To measure a distance is to count a beat, and to count a beat is to consent to a path through geometry. From this braiding arises patience and terror. Patience, because journeys that look impossible to outside eyes are perfectly normal along your own line of life. Terror, because there are destinations you cannot refuse. In this interior, all roads tip toward a center. Time's arrow is not painted on the air. It is embossed into geometry. The future is not merely what has not yet happened. It is the basin toward which every path drains. You may linger at eddies and shelves. You may climb a little. The slope is patient and, given long enough, irresistible. Does that mean fate is a law and freedom a rumor? Not at the human scale. The tilt of space-time decides the great drift. Within it, we invent detours. You can turn left instead of right. You can love or refuse. You can write or remain silent. And your choices matter because they trace different routes across the same hillside, carving distinct stories into the same eventual page. If the valley ahead is unavoidable, meaning blooms in the way we walk toward it. But the hillside steepens. The closer any traveler draws to the heart, the more tightly time contracts for them relative to the wide room. Minutes for them become millennia for us. Their last glance backward might hold a universe's history unfolding like weather. The paradox that so often unsettles beginners, that one observer sees another freeze at the horizon while the falling observer feels no pause, is not a contradiction, but a relief. Two truths keeping each other honest from different vantage points. Here, how long is not a single question with a single answer. It is a pair of questions bound together by the curve that shapes them both. Our universe behaves like such a traveler writ large. If we are the inside of collapse, then to the outside we are a brief convulsion. To us we are a history vast enough to cultivate memory. This is why our doubts about meaning are not erased by scale. Proper time remains ours. Even if the parent cosmos reads our saga as a momentary shiver, inside the shiver we have room for art, remorse, forgiveness, discovery. The intimacy of time is not revoked by the size of the stage. Time inside does more than stretch. It leans. Near the horizon of a rotating black hole. Imagine our wider room having a spin. The very fabric of space is dragged around the center. This frame dragging turns the ground under your feet into a slow conveyor, carrying you east whether you wish it or not. There's an in-between region, the ergosphere, where standing still relative to distant stars is impossible. You must whirl. In such a place, time borrows from space and returns the loan with interest. Energy can be mined from that whirl. Let a particle split at the right angle. and one piece escapes with more than it brought, paid for by the black hole's spin. Even a clock face shines with economics. Could our cosmos bear such a twist? On the largest scales, our sky looks almost even, too smooth for a grand universal whirl, and yet small anisotropies whisper that perfect stillness may be a story we tell to sleep at night. If a faint rotation lives in the background, its signature would be written in polarization like the grain in wood. If not, the lesson remains. Time is not an unbent hallway. It is a dance floor with a subtle drift, and every step we take pays a tax to curvature. Even on Earth, we feel a pale version of this. Clocks high in mountains tick faster than clocks by the sea. Satellites must reconcile both speed and height, lest our maps lead us astray. What we call now is already a negotiated treaty. And what of loops? The equations allow, in certain exotic circumstances, for paths that return to themselves, closed time-like curves, stories that end at their beginning. Nature and common sense protest. We fear paradox. The message that prevents itself, the hand that slaps its own wrist before it moves. There is a fierce kindness in the universe's likely refusal to admit such loops at human scales. Chronology protection may be less a published law than a posture reality assumes to keep narratives readable. Yet near extreme geometries, hints persist, twist the room enough, and lines that ought to diverge threaten to meet. The warning is less an invitation than a boundary marker. Here, the map burns at the edges. This disagreement between what equations permit and what the world seems to prefer is the seed of a deeper understanding of memory. We think of memory as a filing cabinet, but memory is a gradient. Entropy, our statistical measure of disorder, salts time with direction. Tea cools, smoke disperses, eggs do not unscramble. The arrow we obey in kitchens and cities is thermodynamic. The universe had low entropy early, and it has been relaxing ever since. Inside a black hole, entropy is stranger still. The area of the horizon measures it, as if the boundary carries the bookkeeping for everything that fell within. Information, the rumor runs, is never destroyed. It is smeared into faint code on the skin of the room, legible to no one inside, perhaps legible to no one at all, and yet preserved with stubborn perfection. There is comfort and sorrow here. Comfort because it suggests information is not annihilated even when forms are. Sorrow because it means the accounting may outlast the meaningfulness. When the last star has burned its final reserve, when even black holes grow thin through a slow drizzle of radiation, time will still be doing what it does, turning difference into sameness. The arrow is patient. It walks every world to equilibrium. To know this is to feel both gratitude for our temporary edges and grief for their inevitable smoothing. And yet, inside that long walk, life creates local eddies. We are an eddy, a small whirl where entropy temporarily funds structure. We spend borrowed order on consciousness, language, and care. It is a fragile economy, defended by the sun's stipend and by chance. If time is the slope that moves all things toward the center, we are a curl in the stream that insists on making patterns before surrendering. In this way, meaning is not an exception to physics, but a performance within it, a dance financed by gradients. Travelers in our imagined interior often ask, could time ever reverse? Could the river run uphill near the heart? Or could some future technology coax a pocket of space to step outside the general drift? Reversal is not forbidden in equations. It is merely buried under odds so brutal that the universe chooses not to pay them. To reverse the arrow, you would need to unscramble everything. Not just the egg on your plate, but the air that remembers its smell, the photons that left the scene, the nerves that fired in witness, the quiet biases of dust on the windowsill. The price is indistinguishable from omniscience. But there are gentler ways to renegotiate with time. We can slow it for ourselves, race fast, fall deep, dwell where gravity is strong. The price is isolation. A ship that schemes a black hole's throat and returns will bring home a crew younger than the children they left. The reunion is a mathematics of tears and embraces, an experiment in love's ability to instrument ambiguity. Our descendants may choose such voyages, knowing that proper time is intimate and ruthless, that every great adventure is also a precise promise about what you are willing to miss. The closer we try to reason with time, the more it answers in parables. Imagine 3 candles in a dark room, one tall and new, one half melted, one a puddle with a flicker. Which is earliest? Which is latest? The room contains them all at once, but each candle carries its own history in wax. In relativity, simultaneity is a local agreement, not a universal decree. There is no absolute present stamped across the cosmos, only neighborhoods where clocks can sign a treaty. Inside our curved room, treaties are fragile and beautiful. They last exactly long enough for care to be delivered and vows to be kept. We cling to now because it feels like a raft. The past is a weight, the future an absence. But inside a black hole-born universe, now is a slope-specific slice, not a sacred plane. This does not cheapen love or grief. It honors their locality. To say, I am with you now, is to say on our small raft, on this bend of the river, our clocks agree long enough for kindness to reach you. There is no larger court that can annul that vow. Some will hear this and despair. If time is geometry, are we furniture? If the slope is set, is courage theater? The answer returns from every honest life. Theater is real to the actors and the audience. Geometry is real to the stage. We are responsible precisely because the slope does not dictate our lines. It sets the acts and the curtain. Within those acts, we are free to choose tragedies or testaments, cruelties or consolations. A good life is a well-edited script performed on a stage whose incline we learn to use, not deny. There is another intimacy between time and kindness. To be kind is to spend your limited proper seconds for someone else's benefit, to redistribute your scarce currency of moments. In a universe where time dilates, this can even be literal. A caregiver ages faster than the patient in orbit. A rescuer at sea pays years that a satellite does not. The physics does not sanctify the act, but records the cost with pitiless accuracy. Morality, in this cosmos, is not outside the equations. It is written in the ledger of clocks. As we approach the heart of our interior in imagination, time grows viscous. Calculations fail, singular language returns. We say "and" because we cannot narrate the region where before and after have no stable meanings. Some theorists offer bounces, others propose bridges. Some draw careful diagrams that swap coordinates like mass to rescue the play from incoherence. Perhaps they are right. Perhaps the end of time here is an intermission, and the next act begins inside another room with its own clock and its own light. We may never know. The horizon remains a censor. The center remains a silence. And our most faithful reports are still written by light that left when we were not yet dust. But inside those limits, time gives us gifts. Duration enough to ask, delay enough to learn, decay gentle enough to make room for new patterns. Even suffering testifies to time's paradox. Pain needs persistence to be felt. Healing needs the same. Both confirm that hours have texture. Texture is grace disguised as scheduling. Listen to the textures. A day has the grain of work. A night has the grain of rest. Childhood is soft pine, easily marked. Age is hardwood, dense with rings. Whole civilizations have palates. Brisk centuries of exploration, slow centuries of repair. The universe paints with these woods. If our cosmos spins or drifts or leans in its own deep way, that leaning is woven into history's furniture, into the frequency of floods and harvests, into the generational patience of cathedrals, into the sudden bright ambition of ages that believe they have more time than they do. And so we return to the question with which we began. What if time is a room? Then wisdom is learning the room by heart. Find where the floor tilts and build your table with one leg shorter. Sit where the afternoon light lingers slightly longer because the window faces the right way in this latitude of space-time. Forgive faster than you forget. Because entropy will help you with forgetting, but not with forgiveness. Save what needs time to ripen. Spend what will not improve with hoarding. Recognize that the room's tilt will carry you whether you notice it or not, and let that knowledge sweeten your attention. If we live inside a black hole's interior, our calendars are provincial and our courage cosmopolitan. We will not master time. We will apprentice ourselves to it. We will carry two truths without letting them quarrel. But the slope is set, and that our steps matter. The river is a room. The room is a river. We float by walking. We arrive by staying. We outlast ourselves by spending ourselves. And when the last day comes, whatever day can mean near the place where days dissolve, we will hand our unspent questions to whatever room opens next, confident that curiosity can cross horizons even when light cannot. Until then, synchronize watches when you can and love people in their proper time when you cannot. Take photographs knowing there are agreements between clocks. Write letters to the future without demanding their reply. Count the beats of your own heart in the dark, and know that the beat is not a metronome set by the gods, but a local treaty signed by muscle and gravity and hope. If time is not what we think, it can still be what we need, a way to braid attention into continuity, a slope gentle enough for mercy, a room large enough to seat us together while the stars continue their patient fall. Remember this when the clock on your wall disagrees with the clock in your phone, when a long night with a friend seems shorter than an hour under harsh lights, when grief makes a week feel like a century and joy turns an afternoon into a spark. Time is not a single drumbeat. It is a texture that changes with place, with gravity, with speed, and with meaning. We were born into a tilted room and given feet that learn to balance on slopes. That is not a punishment. It is a style of grace. Have you ever wondered whether the walls we imagine around the universe are not walls at all, but the skin of something far stranger? Imagine the cosmic stage as we know it. Galaxies drifting apart, light stretching thinner, time itself crawling toward some silent end. And then imagine all of it as no more than the faint shimmer inside a bubble. That bubble is not floating in nothing. It is falling inward toward a point so dense, so absolute, that no escape exists. Not for light, not for time, not for meaning. We call it black hole. But what if that name, that concept, is only a crude label for the womb in which our reality was born? If the universe is the inside of a black hole, then the Big Bang was not the beginning of everything. It was the surface of collapse, the moment matter from another universe was compressed beyond its own capacity to resist. What we call expansion may be the unfolding of that collapse from the inside out, a strange mirror of destruction appearing as birth. The galaxies are not racing away into infinite space. They're flowing deeper into the curve of space-time, further down the throat of an event we cannot see from the outside. Picture the event horizon, the boundary past which no signal can return. From within, there is no sense of surface. The laws of physics still apply. Stars burn, planets orbit, civilizations rise and fall. But beyond every horizon is another curve, another fold, leading to the singularity. And we, like unwitting passengers, are moving toward it with the same inevitability as an object falling toward the ground. Except our ground is a place where space and time end their familiar dance and merge into something else entirely. If we are inside such a structure, then the outside universe must be unimaginably vast, older and more complex than our own. Black holes there may be as common as stars are here, each one a seed from which a new reality blooms. From their perspective, our entire cosmos is contained in a region smaller than a speck of dust. We are an afterthought, an echo of a collapse they may never even notice. And yet, from our perspective, we are all that exists. The thought changes the meaning of observation. Astronomers mapping the cosmic microwave background are not charting the edge of the universe. They're tracing the scars of the collapse that birthed it. The faint patterns in that ancient light may be whispers from the parent universe's death, imprinted like fingerprints on the surface of our reality. The physics we trust, the constants we measure, could be local quirks, the unique signature of this black hole's interior, not the universal laws of all existence. If so, then black holes are not merely destructive, they're creative engines. Every one that forms could be a genesis. Every collapse could be a big bang to those trapped inside. The cycle would be infinite. Universes giving birth to universes, each contained within the singularities of the last. And somewhere, perhaps infinitely far down the chain, is the first collapse. Or perhaps there is no first, only an endless regress, an eternal nesting of realities within realities. What would that mean for life, for consciousness? It would mean that existence is not a straight arrow from beginning to end, but a spiral, each loop hidden within the loop before it. Civilizations may have risen in countless universes before ours, each believing itself the pinnacle, each reaching for the truth, each one eventually swallowed by its own collapse, giving rise to the next. And in each, beings may have asked the same questions we ask now, their voices echoing faintly through the structure of space and time, never reaching us, yet somehow shaping the conditions we inherit. There is a darker implication. If we are inside a black hole, our fate is sealed. No amount of technological power can reverse the inward fall. The singularity waits for all things. The question is not whether we will meet it, but what happens when we do. Will the collapse be the end, with all information destroyed in a final erasure? Or will it be the birth cry of yet another universe, one where the traces of our lives are scattered like seeds in new soil? Some physicists suspect that information cannot be destroyed, that the laws of quantum mechanics forbid it. If so, then every thought, every action, every life in our universe would be encoded somehow into the structure of the next, a ghostly inheritance carried forward forever. But if that is true, then we are not just witnesses to the universe's story. We are part of its genetic code. Our existence now shapes what will come after the singularity, in ways we cannot predict or control. The stars we light, the matter we move, even the radiation we emit into the void may all become subtle patterns in the foundation of another reality. Perhaps the beings of that future will one day puzzle over strange constants and mysterious asymmetries, never suspecting they're reading the fingerprints of a civilization that lived billions of years before their own. And what of the parent universe? If we are the inside of one of its black holes, could its inhabitants ever suspect we are here? To them, the event horizon of our universe might appear as a silent, lightless sphere in their sky, swallowing stars that venture too close. They would see nothing beyond the horizon. No galaxies, no light, no sign of life. And yet, inside, entire histories play out, suns burn, oceans swell and recede, creatures evolve, minds awaken, and the question why is asked for the first time. Perhaps they have asked the same question about their own reality, and perhaps they too are inside something larger still. If the chain is endless, then the notion of outside becomes meaningless. There's always another layer, another collapse, another birth. Infinity curls back on itself, not as a straight road, but as a hall of mirrors, each reflecting another, each containing worlds that will never meet. And within each, there may be a moment, perhaps this one, when the beings inside realize the truth and the knowledge changes them forever. The air you breathe, the ground beneath your feet, the stars above your head, all of it is part of the fall. We are not moving outward toward freedom. We are spiraling inward toward a boundary we cannot see. Every second brings us closer, though the scale is so vast we feel no motion at all. It is like standing in the middle of a slow whirlpool. The water around you is calm, the pull almost imperceptible, but the destination is inevitable. And yet, even knowing this, we live, we dream, we create. Perhaps that is the true miracle, that in a universe whose fate is collapse, life still reaches for meaning. If reality is the inside of a black hole, then we're creatures born of death, nourished by the energy of a dying parent universe. And one day, our own collapse will give rise to another, and perhaps another still. Somewhere in that endless chain, the light from our stars may shine again, not here, but in the strange sky of a future we will never see. Have you ever wondered whether the walls we imagine around the universe are not walls at all, but the skin of something far stranger? Imagine the cosmic stage as we know it. Galaxies drifting apart, light stretching thinner, time itself crawling towards some silent end. And then imagine all of it as no more than the faint shimmer inside a bubble. That bubble is not floating in nothing. It is falling inward toward a point so dense, so absolute, that no escape exists. Not for light, not for time, not for meaning. We call it black hole. But what if that name, that concept, is only a crude label for the womb in which our reality was born? If the universe is the inside of a black hole, then the Big Bang was not the beginning of everything. It was the surface of collapse, the moment matter from another universe was compressed beyond its own capacity to resist. What we call expansion may be the unfolding of that collapse from the inside out, a strange mirror of destruction appearing as birth. The galaxies are not racing away into infinite space. They're flowing deeper into the curve of space-time, further down the throat of an event we cannot see from the outside. Picture the event horizon, the boundary past which no signal can return. From within, there is no sense of a surface. The laws of physics still apply. Stars burn, planets orbit, civilizations rise and fall. But beyond every horizon is another curve, another fold, leading to the singularity. And we, like unwitting passengers, are moving toward it with the same inevitability as an object falling toward the ground. Except our ground is a place where space and time end their familiar dance and merge into something else entirely. If we are inside such a structure, then the outside universe must be unimaginably vast, older and more complex than our own. Black holes there may be as common as stars are here, each one a seed from which a new reality blooms. From their perspective, our entire cosmos is contained in a region smaller than a speck of dust. We are an afterthought, an echo of a collapse they may never even notice. And yet, from our perspective, we are all that exists. The thought changes the meaning of observation. Astronomers mapping the cosmic microwave background are not charting the edge of the universe. They're tracing the scars of the collapse that birthed it. The faint patterns in that ancient light may be whispers from the parent universe's death, imprinted like fingerprints on the surface of our reality. The physics we trust, the constants we measure, could be local quirks, the unique signature of this black hole's interior, not the universal laws of all existence. If so, then black holes are not merely destructive. They're creative engines. Every one that forms could be a genesis. Every collapse could be a big bang to those trapped inside. The cycle would be infinite. Universes giving birth to universes, each contained within the singularities of the last. And somewhere, perhaps infinitely far down the chain, is the first collapse. Or perhaps there is no first, only an endless regress, an eternal nesting of realities within realities. What would that mean for life, for consciousness? It would mean that existence is not a straight arrow from beginning to end, but a spiral, each loop hidden within the loop before it. Civilizations may have risen in countless universes before ours, each believing itself the pinnacle, each reaching for the truth, each one eventually swallowed by its own collapse, giving rise to the next. And in each, beings may have asked the same questions we ask now, their voices echoing faintly through the structure of space and time, never reaching us, yet somehow shaping the conditions we inherit. There is a darker implication. If we are inside a black hole, our fate is sealed. No amount of technological power can reverse the inward fall. The singularity waits for all things. The question is not whether we will meet it, but what happens when we do. Will the collapse be the end, with all information destroyed in a final erasure? Or will it be the birth cry of yet another universe, one where the traces of our lives are scattered like seeds in new soil? Some physicists suspect that information cannot be destroyed, that the laws of quantum mechanics forbid it. If so, then every thought, every action, every life in our universe would be encoded somehow into the structure of the next, a ghostly inheritance carried forward forever. But if that is true, then we are not just witnesses to the universe's story. We are part of its genetic code. Our existence now shapes what will come after the singularity, in ways we cannot predict or control. The stars we light, the matter we move, even the radiation we emit into the void, may all become subtle patterns in the foundation of another reality. Perhaps the beings of that future will one day puzzle over strange constants and mysterious asymmetries, never suspecting they're reading the fingerprints of a civilization that lived billions of years before their own. And what of the parent universe? If we're the inside of one of its black holes, could its inhabitants ever suspect we are here? To them, the event horizon of our universe might appear as a silent, lightless sphere in their sky, swallowing stars that venture too close. They would see nothing beyond the horizon, no galaxies, no light, no sign of life. And yet, inside, entire histories play out, suns burn, oceans swell and recede, creatures evolve, minds awaken, and the question why is asked for the first time. Perhaps they have asked the same question about their own reality, and perhaps they, too, are inside something larger still. If the chain is endless, then the notion of outside becomes meaningless. There's always another layer, another collapse, another birth. Infinity curls back on itself, not as a straight road, but as a hall of mirrors, each reflecting another, each containing worlds that will never meet. And within each, there may be a moment, perhaps this one, when the beings inside realize the truth and the knowledge changes them forever. The air you breathe, the ground beneath your feet, the stars above your head, all of it is part of the fall. We're not moving outward toward freedom. We are spiraling inward toward a boundary we cannot see. Every second brings us closer, though the scale is so vast we feel no motion at all. It is like standing in the middle of a slow whirlpool. The water around you is calm, the pull almost imperceptible, but the destination is inevitable. And yet, even knowing this, we live, we dream, we create. Perhaps that is the true miracle, that in a universe whose fate is collapse, life still reaches for meaning. If reality is the inside of a black hole, then we're creatures born of death, nourished by the energy of a dying parent universe. And one day, our own collapse will give rise to another, and perhaps another still. Somewhere in that endless chain, the light from our stars may shine again, not here, but in the strange sky of a future we will never see. Imagine the farthest future as a hush, not an end. The last bright cities of stars dim their windows, one by one, and the roads between them grow long with snow. Hydrogen becomes a memory told by elders who once cooked with it. Helium is a lullaby. Heavy elements are stories about jewelry and bones. Galaxies loosen their grip and drift apart like old friends promising to write. The great black engines at their centers brood and feed and fade, patient as landforms. Trillions of years spin past like dust caught in a shaft of light. The theater empties without closing. The curtain stays raised. The audience is the night itself. This is not a catastrophe. This is the universe keeping its appointments, honoring the contract written in its own geometry. The music lowers, the tempo widens, and the melody becomes room for other melodies. If our sky is the interior of a black hole, all of this is the slow choreography of falling felt from the inside. To an exterior reader, if exterior has meaning, our entire history might be the quick tightening of a fist. To us, there's time enough for oceans, time enough for language, time enough for remorse and repair. We inhabit the grace period between ignition and hush, and in that grace we have built instruments that turn faintness into news. We have learned to listen to light that left when nothing on earth had yet remembered how to be a leaf. We have learned to count the shiver of space-time when distant giants collide. We have learned the humility of horizons and the stubborn kindness of local choices that matter, even when the map is larger than our courage. Endings arrive as texture before they arrive as headlines. First come the long winters, the patient red dwarfs that burn with thrift and serenity. Civilizations that survive learn to orbit them like monasteries around a candle. They farm cold soils, keep clocks with pulsars, and write libraries into crystal. They no longer mistake urgency for importance. They keep their promises with the steady discipline of people who know that fuel is a form of truth. When the last of those candles gutters, the craft turns delicate. Heat becomes a rare spice. Energy is coaxed from gradients so slight they could be missed by an inattentive god. Work continues, small, exacting, beautiful, not because someone is watching, but because someone nearby needs soup, a bridge, a joke told well in a dim room. Then even the engines sleeping at the centers of galaxies thin by degrees. Hawking's faint arithmetic takes over, photon by photon, until the largest horizons evaporate into size of light. We will never see that day, and still we can imagine it with enough accuracy to feel gentle in its direction. The ledger of the universe keeps careful books. If information cannot be destroyed, it will be folded into the skin of horizons, then returned as a soft rain of pattern. Not a message addressed to us, but a fidelity to the law that nothing is wasted. The room records our footsteps even as the floorboards are replaced, and the record, scrambled, anonymous, exact, becomes the seed bank for whatever room opens next. This makes an ethic out of physics. If realities are born from collapse, then every interior is a will that can be inherited. The constants are attitudes. The fields are habits. The symmetries are rituals learned across generations of rooms. We cannot choose which details cross the horizon, but we can flood our era with details worth crossing. Act so that the information you add to the ledger is weighted toward clarity, toward repair, toward tenderness that survives translation. A cruel brilliance is still noise. A small mercy is a crisp signal. In a universe that edits with gravity, kindness is high resolution. Meaning, then, is not a treasure hidden outside the wall. Meaning is a practice inside the wall, the way we arrange time into attention. The horizon will not move for us, but the floor is ours to sweep. The table is ours to set. Once we believed significance required scale, great constructions, great empires, a broadcast that could be heard at the edge of everything. Now we know better. The edge is not reachable, and the broadcast becomes snow. What lasts is the local correction. The apology spoken before it is demanded, the measurement made one order of magnitude more honest than necessary, the garden planted where no one expects to walk. These acts do not change the slope of space-time. They change us, and we are part of the space-time that will be remembered. You might ask what becomes of love when the theater goes dark. It becomes technique. It becomes the knowledge of how to keep each other warm with fewer watts and more stories. It becomes the discipline of boredom born together rather than alone. It becomes the archive of gestures that teach children how to manufacture hope in laboratories of winter. It becomes songs with long rests, meals with long silences, decisions made with long views. It becomes a tradition of tending a single lamp for a very long night. And after the night, after the arithmetic of differences has finished its patient work, and the room has learned the word enough in every language, then the interior completes its sentence. The period is not a punch. It is a breath. From the outside, the impossible, the imagined, the collapse has been finishing all along. From the inside, the only vantage that knows warmth, the center gathers the last commas. The script closes not in despair, but in grammar. And grammar is generous to continuations. A new clause can begin where the old one resolves, provided the conjunction is true. Gravity supplies the conjunction, therefore. Therefore, a new room opens from the old room's inwardness. Therefore, expansion answers contraction like an echo answering a call across a valley we cannot cross. Therefore, another dawn enters stage left carrying props we will never touch and habits we taught it without intending to. In that dawn, someone will step outside and mistake the ceiling for forever, as we once did. They will map irregular patches in their earliest light and argue kindly about whether the patches are artifacts or ancestry. They will discover that precision breeds humility. They will name particles with playful care and notice that the names are less important than the experiments prompted by the names. They will learn the feel of horizons the way sailors once learned the feel of shoals. They will fall in love, which is to say they will make promises stronger than any force in their textbooks, because the promise to show up tomorrow is more binding than the curvature of space. Their poets will reinvent our metaphors without credit. Their scientists will reinvent our errors with better instruments. Their children will reinvent our wonder with the same gasp and the same laugh. We will not meet them, and that is all right. A gift is bigger when it travels anonymously. We have been the inside of something's ending and the seed of something's beginning. We have used our room to learn how to listen and how to add carefully to the noise. We have learned that infinity measured as distance is overrated. Infinity measured as depth is enough. We have learned that a ceiling can be a sky if you study it long enough to love its curve. We have learned that the lack of escape is not the lack of meaning. It is the absence of excuses. So here is our last assignment under this dome. Keep a lamp lit, not bright, not wasteful, just enough to find each other's faces in the long hallways of the future. Keep the instruments tuned, even when they report only silence. Sometimes silence is exactly the data the world owes you. Keep the archives scrupulous and the jokes gentle. Keep the doors unlatched. Keep watch with the patience of things that understand schedules larger than calendars. If you must pray, let be with actions. Water saved, harm paused, attention paid. If you must write instructions that would still make sense to someone who does not know your language but knows your care. And when the final days arrive, not days exactly, but intervals that wear the costume of days, do not demand trumpets. Open the windows. Let the last red star draw a long line across the floor. Drink something warm. Tell the oldest story you remember as if it were happening now. It is happening now, somewhere in the braid of time where beginnings and endings shake hands. Then rest. Rest is an act of confidence, not surrender. Rest as the last experiment. Can a universe trust itself enough to sleep? If it can, then the next universe will wake with a talent already in its bones, the talent for continuity. Our patterns will be present as biases in its laws, as ease in its chemistry, as hospitality in its timing. It will not know our names. It will not need them. It will inherit our habit of looking up, our refusal to accept cruelty as a cleverness, our method of asking questions that do not flatter us. It will inherit our taste for lanterns. And when it looks up at its first night and asks the first impractical, necessary question, what is this and what am I inside of? It will be answering us across a gulf that is not a gulf at all but a seam. We will be the rumor that steadies its hand. We will be the reason its first map leaves room at the edges for surprise. So let the curtain stay raised. Let the audience remain the night itself. Let the last light become a hush and the hush become a key. We are not leaving the universe. The universe is turning the page. Hold the lamp. Pass it on.